A few days ago, we covered the story of the lost weapons in Afghanistan. So what happened is we fucked up the tracking system. In fact, we implemented multiple different tracking systems for the same set of weapons, and that led to all different kinds of inconsistencies and problems, and we sent a surplus of 83,000 AK-47s to Afghanistan, and now we know where none of the weapons are. Such a tremendous story. I don't know of anybody else that covered it. You know, maybe some other new media outlets covered it along with me, but I didn't see a single mention on CNN. I didn't see a single mention in mainstream media, and unfortunately, I'm not surprised. But that's just what we're getting used to at this point. So we're poised to make an even worse mistake with an even bigger downside when it comes to weapons and selling them overseas. Quote, the United States plans to sell 5,000 Hellfire missiles to Iraq in a $700 million deal, officials said Tuesday as Washington tries to help Baghdad retake ground captured by Sunni militants. Of course, they're referring to ISIS. So this would be the biggest Hellfire missile deal in history. Now, that might seem hunky-dory at face value, or maybe not. You guys are Secular Talk listeners, so you probably already know. You can read between the lines and see the problem with this. But let me explain to people who might not understand why this is a big deal and why this is going to end up being a problem. The military in Iraq is useless. There have been a barrage of stories that have come out from that region. Daily Beast had one the other day. There was one in Reuters, I think, as well. And it basically outlined how the military in Iraq, they're either just ragtag group of, moderate Sunnis who don't like ISIS, so they picked up weapons and said, okay, give me a paycheck, I'll be your military. Or it's Shiite militants from Iran, right? And who is it? I think it's Muqtada al-Sadr, who is the head of the, I think they call it the Mahdi army. That's an Iraqi Shiite group. Now, here's the kicker. We were fighting them when we had the Iraq War not that long ago. So people who we were fighting 5 years ago, 6 years ago, now these advisors are being sent in, American military advisors are being sent in to train the people that were fighting us, both Shiites and Sunnis, because we're viewing this as the enemy of my enemy is my friend. We think that ISIS is so bad, which they are, by the way. Let me just say that and be crystal clear right off the bat. But they're so bad that fuck it, let's arm and train people who want to kill us and still fucking hate us. Isn't that an amazing thing? Like, to people who know the specifics and the details of this, you're stunned. You're stunned that we can fuck up in so many ways in terms of getting too involved militarily overseas, and we end up helping people who we hate and they hate us, and the only reason we're helping them is because ISIS is worse. And look, that's only part of the reason. Now, keep in mind, when it comes to the Sunnis who in Iraq who we're arming and helping, maybe some of them will actually end up joining ISIS. We don't know. There's no way of knowing. What we do know is that the Sunnis who we're helping don't like the Shiite Maliki government right now in Iraq. So is it really a smart idea to give weapons to people who might defect and go to a jihadist group, or give weapons to people who might use it against the government, the Shiite government of Iraq that we support? Is that a good idea? And is it also a good idea to arm fighters that are coming out of Iran when we, supposedly say how much we hate Iran? It doesn't make any sense. So let me give you more on this story here. Quote, the State Department has approved the deal, and U.S. law requires the government to inform members of Congress of a possible weapons sale. Lawmakers are not expected to try to block the sale. So think about this. We have a political climate in America right now where everything is controversial, and the Republicans block anything that Obama and the Democrats try to do. Except this. What are you doing? This is one time when obstruction is greatly needed, and we would appreciate it. But the Republicans are like, no, actually, this one we agree with. Whenever the Democrats want to be warmongers and they want to arm people and shit, we're all for it. We want to Give the world more weapons is what we say. Give our enemies more weapons is what we say. So that's strange, right? How can it be that they've literally broken the record for filibusters when it comes to President Obama, the Congress has? How can it be that they tried to repeal Obamacare 51 times? That's an actual number. They shut down the government when they don't get their way. But on this issue, all of a sudden they say, no, the Democrats and the Republicans are in lockstep, and they're all for sending Hellfire missiles to people who are questionable in terms of how loyal they are to the U.S. and how much they're willing to try to keep the peace. So, what's going on here? Well, it turns out when you dig a little deeper, you find that the Hellfire missiles are made by Lockheed Martin, the defense contractor. I use the word defense very loosely. Clearly, they're an offense contractor. And how much money did Lockheed Martin spend on lobbying in 2014 alone? $3,393,310. So if you're wondering what can make Democrats and Republicans come together to sell weapons to people who will maybe eventually turn those weapons against us, the answer is about $3.4 million. Money talks. So in this story, we get a smorgasbord of all the problems wrong in America today. We have extreme militarism and imperialism. We have the U.S. just doing intervention too much and getting involved in too many places and clearly crossing some lines and making some horrible decisions, arming people that is going to end up biting us in the ass, like it did with Ronald Reagan when he armed the Mujahideen, and then they became the Taliban and Al-Qaeda and used the weapons against us. The same thing is going on here. So it's a mix of the U.S. empire going crazy and doing insanely stupid shit, and the military-industrial complex, and corruption and money in politics, which, of course, these things are all interlinked. But you can see the problem right in front of our faces. The problem is that the defense contractors and the corporations give money to all the politicians of both parties, and then they get those politicians to do their bidding.